All right, should be starting live now. Happy Wednesday afternoon. This is really strange to be talking about football, but yeah, we have a game coming up in 30 minutes, and obviously we have a showdown slate to talk about. Baltimore, Pittsburgh. We have some news to go over as far as the running backs. We have some guys added to the active roster from the practice squad. Draftkings actually did a good job adding those players, so we'll talk about a couple of those guys. And then we'll get to my player-by-player breakdown and then questions at the end. So yeah, let's just start with taking a look at the Vegas odds. So not a lot has changed. I think last night it was 42. It's a 41.5 over-under, so definitely on the low side here. Obviously due to the fact of Pittsburgh is a solid defense and Baltimore is playing with a lot of backups. So yeah, and again, Pittsburgh 10.5 point favorites. I do want to go over the additions here to the active roster here for Baltimore. So they added a few guys. They added running back Tyson Williams. They added 3 tight ends in Colkin, Tomlinson, and Luke Wilson. Luke Wilson's the best pass-catching tight end of the bunch, and he actually played in their most recent game. So I do have interest in him. He's at 2.4K. And we also did get news earlier today that doesn't look like Dobbins and Mark Ingram, even though they're active, they're not going to play. So, we'll review Baltimore and the running backs here in a bit. But look at the last game. Again, we'll go over these really quick. I mean, for Baltimore at least, none of this really matters, right? Dobbins was the bell cow, but he's out. It was Mark Ingram barely playing. Gus Edwards, he should start at running back, but he doesn't have a lot of pass-catching ability. I expect Justice Hill to be the number 2, and I really like him for value right now. Definitely one of my favorite value plays, that being Justice Hill. Wide receivers for Baltimore, again, we have no Willie Snead, so it should be Hollywood Brown and Dez is the number 1 and number 2, with Boykin and Duvernay mixed in at the number 3. I expect both those guys to get decent run in a game they're probably playing from behind. So yeah, both Boykin, Duvernay, viable punt plays on this slate. Tight ends, again, so that last game, Luke Wilson actually did play 17% of the snaps when Mark Andrews was available. Obviously, no Mark Andrews, no Nick Boyle. So I expect Luke Wilson to be their pass-catching tight end. He's at 2.4K. Definitely a viable punt that I don't think a lot of people get to for this slate. Running backs for Pittsburgh, well, we know James Conner's out. Also, what we know is Pittsburgh kind of is using one bell cow back. So Benny Snell is viable on the slate, but there's risk just because Pittsburgh, in games they've been playing from a huge lead, back-to-back games, they just are not running the ball. They don't run the football. So, yeah, Benny Snell's in play, but he's probably not going to get like 20-plus touches. McFarland will probably get a few snaps here and there, but not expecting a lot from him. Wide receivers for Pittsburgh, well, we know the main 3 are Deontay, Juju, and Claypool. They will be out the majority of the game. All 3 have enormous upside just because Pittsburgh, again, they do not run. They air it out. Expect probably 40-plus pass attempts from Big Ben once again. Ray McLeod and James Washington will kind of be mixed in at the number 4 role. Yeah, both viable punt plays as well. And then tight ends for Pittsburgh last game, Ebron played 93% of the snaps. I expect him to play majority of the game. We do have Vance McDonald back. In the games when Vance McDonald was active, he played about a third of the game, so that's kind of what I'm expecting there. All right, so that's kind of it for going over some snap counts, going over who's active, who's inactive, taking a look at the Vegas odds. So now let's talk about the player-by-player breakdown here. So we'll start at the top, and Big Ben at 11.4 is a clear play in cash games, a clear play in GBPs too. He's going to be super popular, but like we saw last slate, Russell Wilson was also the same, right? He was probably the safest play on the board. Guy's been playing really well. Everyone played him. He was 80 to 90% owned, and Russell Wilson was not in the winning lineup. So there is still a way. Big Ben is not in the winning GPP lineup, but I'm not going to get cute. I'm going to play him and look to get different elsewhere. So, yeah, Big Ben is someone I'm loading up in both formats just to do the pass attempts. Right? 42, 46 pass attempts in games they were playing from a huge lead. So it doesn't matter whether they're playing from ahead, playing from behind. It's going to be a heavy dose of this passing attack. I think Big Ben is the safest play on the board by far, and someone that still possesses a good amount of upside. No Lamar Jackson. We'll talk about RG3 here in a sec. All 3 Pittsburgh wide receivers, I think, look really good. They're going to be the most popular plays, in my opinion, the captain. Again, we know about 75% of the time in GPPs is either a running back or wide receiver. Well, with Deontay, Claypool, and Juju, again, all 3, I think, will get a good amount of ownership. I think it probably will go with their pricing, where I think Deontay will be the most popular, followed by Claypool, followed by Juju. Kind of a tricky situation here, kind of like Tampa Bay, right, with Evans, Godwin, Antonio Brown. Where's the production is going to go is a little bit tricky. Deontay in the games he's been healthy has been outstanding, basically double-digit targets every single week. Claypool's been a touchdown machine. Some of them are going to the red zone, also getting targeted a lot. And same with Juju. Like, Juju's been the most up and down, but he still possesses upside, right? He can still get you 20-plus fantasy points. So, yeah, you're going to have to make tough calls here with the Steelers receivers. I wish I had a better breakdown. If you're going to make me pick, again, I think Deontay, but he will probably be the most popular. So go with what works in your lineup with those Pittsburgh receivers. You can play a couple. You can try to jam in all three if you want to. Again, we'll go over some value plays, but yeah, gotta like the Pittsburgh receivers here, all three at the top. No James Conner, so Benny Snell's at 8-8. I think he will be somewhat popular, but not super chalky. It's just the downside is, again, let's look at James Conner stats in a game they won 27-3. He ran the ball 13 times. In a game they won 36-10. He ran the ball 13 times. So I don't expect more than like 10 to 15 touches here from Benny Snell. So is he still in play? Yes. Could Pittsburgh do something crazy and just go rely on the ground game in this one? We've seen crazier things. So I guess it's not out of the realm of possibilities. But yeah, Snell at 8-8 seems a little pricey, but still in play. Again, ownership, I don't think is going to be super, super high on him. RG3 at 8-4, I like him a good amount just because I don't expect him to be pretty high owned, right? We saw with Wentz last slate, he was, 30% owned, and he outscored Russell Wilson, even though it was ugly, right? That was just a gross game to watch. But yeah, RG3 will probably be pretty low owned too. Again, the chalky build is going to be Big Ben. It's probably going to be a couple of those receivers. It's going to be a Pittsburgh stack, so people are just going to overlook RG3. He still has some rushing upside, right, which does raise his floor a bit. It's a game they're probably playing from behind. I know the matchup's not great, but I like RG3 today. I think he just is going to go low owned, and he's someone I will be playing as well. So for cash games, if you're starting a cash game lineup, what I would probably do is probably play Big Ben and the captain, just because the highest floor. And then I personally still like getting to RG3, and then probably one of the top receivers there with Pittsburgh. That's the way that I would go about it, and then kind of go from there. If you don't trust RG3, then then you can do something like this with Big Ben and two of his receivers, and then value from there. Right? That's how I would go about building cash game lineup. Steelers defense at 7-8, that's just too expensive. They're going to be, I have a good feeling they're going to be pretty popular. We've seen it the last 2 or 3 slates when a defense has been over 7K, they've been like 40% owned. It was Tampa Bay against the Giants. That defense busted, and then it was New England against the Jets. That defense, it's just, at this price, you need a defensive score. Now, RG3 turnover prone, right? Baltimore missing a ton of pieces, so I get why people go to the Steelers defense, but I just think they're going to be over-owned for the price. So, yeah, if you're making like 10 lineups, maybe throw them in 1 or 2. But again, at this price, you really need a defensive score to pay off the salary. So, Steelers, if they're going to get close to 40% owned again in this slate, there's just no way I'm getting to them. I think that's just an easy fade. So J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram won't be activated, so they're not going to play. Again, they travel, but then there's mix of news. But yeah, no Dobbins, no Mark Ingram. So we'll talk about Gus Edwards. We'll talk about Justice Hill here in a sec. Eric Ebron is at 6.6K. I actually think he's a pretty decent play in the mid-range. I expect him to play majority of the game. Targets, he's averaging about 6 targets a game. They're looking to him in the red zone. So I think Eric Ebron's a perfectly fine play in the mid-range. No issue with him at all. Gus Edwards at 6'2". I think he's going to be pretty popular today. And I'm not saying I'm off him, but I like the value more Justice Hill. Reason being, Gus Edwards is not a guy that's going to catch a lot of passes. And, do I expect a full workload here from Gus Edwards, him to be the bell cow back? No. I expect it to kind of be mixed in with Justice Hill. And again, Hill's way cheaper. He's the better pass-catching back. This is a game Baltimore's probably playing from behind. So Gus Edwards is in play. I just think he will be a bit over-owned on this slate. I prefer the value with Justice Hill. Hollywood Brown at 5'8", has been not good recently. 7, 6, 3, and 0 fantasy points the last 4 games. He's going to go pretty low owned. You can go him in the captain, right? You can play him in the captain in GPPs. Not someone to go to in cash games, but still possesses that big play upside. So if you want to get contrarian, I think you can look to Hollywood Brown just because, again, he does have slate-breaking upside. Like, he can go for 20 to 30 fantasy points if things go well, if RG3 can hit him on a long ball or something. So, yeah, Hollywood Brown in consideration for GPPs, but not a cash game play. Someone that has a very, very low floor, but does possess that ceiling. Again, no Ingram, no Willie Snead. Des Bryant at 4.8, I actually think it's a pretty good play. He should operate as a number 2 receiver, more the possession receiver, while Hollywood Brown more the boomer bust guy. So, yeah, even though Des is getting up in age, like, he should be, like, I like him a pretty good amount at this price. So, yeah, I expect him to play probably 3/4 of the game, maybe a little bit more. In a game they're probably playing from behind, right? So, yeah, I have interest in Des. As far as the kickers go with Boswell and Tucker, I would rather play Boswell, right? I'm just more comfortable with Pittsburgh offense, right? I said the same thing to Myers in Seattle last game. I always go with the kicker who I think is, with the team I'm most comfortable scoring points. Now, James Washington's at 3.6. Yeah, he's in play. Again, he'll kind of operate as a number 4, him, Ray McLeod. Averaging about 2 targets a game. It seems a little bit pricey. So not saying he's out of play, but I think he's more of a contrarian value option. Duvernay at 3.2, so kind of expect him and Miles Boykin to be worked in as the number 3 receiver. Duvernay possesses upside, right? He's a speedster. He returned one in a showdown slate earlier this year. He returned a punt, so again, has that type of slate breaking speed. Duvernay is definitely viable here at 3.2 for value. Ravens defense, like for me, I would rather play the Ravens defense than the Steelers. It's just a price point thing, right? Steelers almost 8K. Again, if you're making a ton of laps, yes, you can throw them in there, but they're going to be over-owned, right? If the Steelers defense was like 10 to 15% owned, then I would like them more. But based off what we've seen in recent showdowns, I expect the Steelers defense to be pretty popular. And if they get close to like 40% owned, the Steelers defense that is, I just have absolutely no interest. McFarland's at 2.6K. He should be the backup back to Benny Snell. Now, how much work does he get? Probably not a lot. So, again, Pittsburgh, they do kind of like going to one bell cow back, even though they haven't been running the ball 10. Now, Luke Wilson, I'm happy they actually added him to the slate. He is good to go. He's activated. In that last game, he ran behind Mark Andrews. He's their best pass-catching tight end. So I expect Luke Wilson to play a majority of the game. And with him being added kind of late to the slate, I think he goes overlooked. But I like him a good amount for value. I think he goes, again, pretty low owned. Baltimore, we know they're like going to their tight ends. I don't really think RG3 is going to throw the long ball a ton. So I think maybe he checks down more to running backs to tight ends. So Luke Wilson, definitely something to look into. And I think he goes pretty low owned. Justice Hill at 2.2K is one of my favorite value plays of the slate. What do you define value? If you define value as Des Bryant, that's probably Des Bryant. But if you define value like below 3K, it's Justice Hill. He'll be the backup running back. I expect a decent amount of work for him. And again, he is the receiving back. I expect them to be playing from behind. So I do like Justice Hill a good amount. And I don't think he's going to be super popular. I think the majority of people will go to Gus Edwards. Now, yeah, sure. Again, Gus Edwards can definitely pay off. Like if Baltimore surprisingly plays from the lead, then you could see a pretty big game from Gus Edwards. But he is kind of touchdown dependent. I don't expect Gus Edwards to catch a ton of balls. Again, I expect Justice Hill to be the pass-catching back, so I like him a good amount here for value. Boykin, again, him, Duvernay should be mixed into the number 3. Boykin's playing time has been going down recently. Again, worth a shot. He's not going to be super, super popular either. Ray McLeod, him, James Washington, they'll be worked in as number 4 receiver. He had 4 catches and 4 targets last game. I think that's more of his ceiling. What I expect from him, probably 1 or 2 targets, maybe a catch or 2, so... he actually has had a rush in each of the last games, too. So, again, another viable cheap play. There's actually a ton of guys like below 3K that are in play. Not a lot that really stand out, but there's like a lot of guys you can use. I think it's going to kind of make for an interesting slate. I think the ownership on some of these value guys will be spread out. Vance McDonald at $400. He will be the number 2 tight end for Pittsburgh. I expect about a third of the game from him. He's shown like last year he's a good pass-catching tight end. No one's going to go to him. I actually kind of like him as a contrarian play. In games he's played, he's averaged like 1 or 2 catches a game. So, yeah, another guy you can throw in the player pool. Tyson Williams will be their number 3 running back behind Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. Is there a way he can get you there? Yeah, we've seen, again, Baltimore has been a team that they like going to 3 backs. So, I would not be overly surprised if we see like 20 to 30% of the running back snaps go to Tyson Williams. Now, sure, he could just not play at all. Maybe he's using it for depth, but I would not be overly surprised. Is he someone I'm prioritizing? No, but add just another guy, another value you can add to the list. As far as Tomlinson goes for Baltimore, I'm not really looking to him, and he's elevated from the practice squad, but he's more of a blocker, him and Culkin. I just much prefer Luke Wilson for a bit more. He's shown he's the best pass-catching tight end in this group, so I'm not really looking to Tomlinson there. And, yeah, that basically wraps up for the player-by-player breakdown here. Hold on. Okay, so let's just make sure that's good. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so we have about 15 minutes on clock. Let's talk about captains. And again, for cash games, I told you guys what I would do. Probably play Big Ben. Probably play one of his receivers. If you want to play RG3, go him. If not, probably play two of his receivers and then go from there. For GPPs, well, I think the guys that are being most popular in the captain are probably Deontay, Claypool, and Juju. Those are the guys that have the most upside. All three of them have put up big games this year. So that's going to be probably the popular build, right, with Deontay at captain or Claypool at captain or Juju at captain. And I agree, all three possess a lot of upside. Can you go Big Ben and captain in GPPs? I think you can still make the argument, right? He's going to throw the ball a ton. So if you want to go Big Ben and the captain in GPPs, fine. If you think he just spreads it out a bunch. Other guys I'm looking to in the captain for GPPs, I kind of like RG3. I don't think a ton of people get to him. Again, he's going to be pretty low owned. I just like the fact that he still has some rushing upside. So yeah, RG3 is someone as kind of a contrarian captain I'm looking to. As far as cheap guys in the captain, again, Hollywood Brown, very boom or bust, but at least he possesses that ceiling to break the slate. I don't mind going Dez, again, contrarian, but I expect him to play majority of the game. So yeah, you can look to him for super cheap. And below that, I probably wouldn't go anyone else. Could you look to Justice Hill and captain and then go plug in everyone else you want? You can do that. What does that leave you? 9.3K remaining, so you can get Big Ben, you can get two of his receivers, and you can get RG3. A viable build, right? So mess around with it. But yeah, safe way, or the safe approach, I think, is go either Big Ben, the captain, or one of the Pittsburgh receivers. That's the way that I would go about it if I'm going for safety. So that's kind of what I got for you guys. So let's get some questions. Real quick, I'll ask if you enjoy the content to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Would greatly appreciate that. Again, closing in on 6K subs. So let's get to some questions here. Who are you going with at captain? Well, I actually built a cash game lineup, something I rarely ever do for showdown slates, but I built a cash game lineup playing Big Ben in the captain in cash games. In GPPs, I'm actually going RG3 in the captain. What do you think about Captain Ben, Claypool, Juju, Hill, Dez, and Brown? I have no issue with that. Captain Ben, Deontay, Claypool, Dez, Hill, Boswell, or Captain Ben, Deontay, Juju, RG3, Hill, McLeod for cash. For cash games, it would be the first option there. My lineup, Johnson, captain, Deontay Johnson, captain, Big Ben, RG3, Dez, Luke Wilson, Ebron. I like that. I do. Captain, Claypool, Ben, Deontay, Hollywood Brown, Duvernay, McFarland. Thoughts? It's risky. It's pretty risky. Obviously you got Claypool will be popular, Big Ben will be popular, and Deontay will be popular. Hollywood Brown possesses that upside, but it's very boom or bust. Duvernay, again, will be mixed in as the number 3 guy. I think is viable. Then McFarland, don't think he's going to get a ton of work. So yeah, there's definitely some risk there. Pick your favorite 2 from McFarland, Hill, Wilson, Ray McLeod, and Boykin. For me, it's going to be Justice Hill and Luke Wilson of those guys. Yeah. Also, Deontay and Duvernay or Claypool and Dez for cash. Deontay and Duvernay or Claypool and Dez for cash. I'd rather go Claypool and Dez for cash. Hey, DK, for my 3 and 5 man tournaments, do you think Big Ben is the right play captain for 3 and 5 man? It would be Big Ben or one of the receivers. That's what I would do in either a 3 or 5 man tournament. Could you play Pittsburgh defense on the captain? You can. I just think the Pittsburgh defense will be over-owned. So I'm not saying the Pittsburgh defense can't get there. Right? There's still a chance they can. Baltimore's missing a ton of pieces. But at that price and the fact that I think they will be somewhat popular based off what we've seen in recent showdown slates, I'm just going to look elsewhere. So you can build a Pittsburgh in the captain lineup. I think that will, again, still be somewhat popular. So if we go the Steelers in the captain, from there, you're probably just going to do a 5-1 if you're playing Steelers in the captain. So I would probably go Big Ben, I'd probably try to jam in a couple more of these pieces, and then play a value guy, maybe like a Justice Hill, and then kind of pick someone else. So that's the build I would go with if I'm playing Steelers defense and the captain. I'd probably do a 5-1 split. I think a 5-1 is actually going to be pretty popular. 5-1 Steelers. So the Ravens guys think I'll go a little bit lower owned. Hey DK, okay, I already answered that. Is RG3 a must play for cash, or should I go Steelers D rather than RG3 in cash? I personally would rather play RG3 in cash, but again, you can make the argument to fade him. I don't think he will be in cash games. I don't know, because I haven't really played cash games in showdown slates this year. But I personally would rather play RG3 than the Pittsburgh defense. Which Pittsburgh receivers are you starting? Let's see. Which ones am I going with? I don't have a strong take here. In my cash game lineup, I'm playing Deontay Johnson. In my GPP lineup with RG3 captain, I'm playing Deontay and Juju. Can you play Luke Wilson in cash? Can you play him in cash? Do I have him in cash? I don't have him in cash. I guess you can. I do have him in my GBP lineup, but don't have him in my cash game. My value for my cash game lineup, I have Dez and Justice Hill. Those are like the Ravens, the cheap Ravens I feel the most comfortable with. I do like Luke Wilson as contrarian play, but would I go there in cash? I think it's fringe cash game viable. Deontay Johnson, McDonald, or are you talking about Cloud or Juju and Boykin? I'd rather go with Juju and Boykin. Do you like Boykin? Playable. Duvernay and Boykin should be mixed into the number 3. Yeah, I mean, he's okay. Not someone I'm overly excited about. Just because the snaps are going down on him, right? He started the year as the number 2 wide receiver. He's been going down, right? It's been like 50% to 30% to like 25% of snaps. So not a good sign, but he is pretty cheap. So yeah, again, playable, but there's a lot of really cheap guys that are in play in this slate. Does salary even matter here? It feels weird leaving so much on the table, well, if you're playing GPPs, no, not at all, right? That's one way to get unique. If you're going to try to win I don't think it's a million maker, I think it's $500K to first. But if you're going to try to win that solo, you got to leave some salary on the table. Did you win in CSGO DFS today? I was actually on the money line, missed by like 5 points in tournaments. I only played tournaments, so no, it was super, super close. What held me back in CSGO was I played Calix in the captain, and he had a pretty bad game for his standards. Captain Juju with Gus or Captain Deontay with Dez? I would rather go Captain Deontay with Dez. I got a 4-2. Yeah, 5-1, 4-2 is going to be pretty popular with, obviously, people loading up on the Steelers. IDK how anyone can play Pittsburgh defense 7.8K. Seems like everything would have to fill production for. Yeah, I mean, if they were like 10% owned, I think you can make the argument. But I think they will be pretty popular again, and at that price, it just doesn't make sense. Do you like Wilson over Duvernay? That one's basically a coin flip. Because Duvernay, again, I expect him to be number 3. I do expect Luke Wilson to play a good amount, but they called up 2 other tight ends, which is a little bit worrisome. So that one's basically a coin flip. Ebron or Duvernay or RG3 McLeod for GPP? I would go RG3 McLeod. I'm playing all 3 Steelers wide receivers straight up. I don't give a fuck. Yeah, you can do that, right? You can literally build this with, let's say we throw Deontay in the captain with Big Ben, Claypool, and Juju. You can do that, right? And I think that is, like, honestly not a bad way to go about this slate. Baltimore, they're missing a ton of pieces, right? So many injuries, so many guys in COVID that do this and then just play value, right? So there's not a ton down here that I like. Probably I would go I probably would just do Justice Hill and then maybe take a shot on. Is there anyone even viable in this range? Not really. I guess you could throw or Tyshawn Williams. Maybe you just think he will get some work, so you could just do something like that, right? I don't hate that build either. I meant Vance McDonald. Oh, Vance McDonald. Oh, my bad. You had to ask the question again. Sorry. Captain Juju, Flex, Big Ben, RG3, Dez, Ebron, and Boswell. Looks good. How come you're less on Duvernay? I'm not less on Duvernay. I think Duvernay's a pretty solid play. He'll play the number 3 role. Him and Boykin will be mixed in. He's at a price of, what is he, 3.2? And 3.2K. He's a speedster. I'm perfectly fine with Duvernay, right? Like I think he's a pretty decent value play. So yeah, I'm not off him for sure. Hill or Wilson and cash, I'd rather go Hill. More guaranteed touches for Justice Hill. You like kickers over Dez for cash? I would rather play Dez than the kickers. Top 3 Ravens, Duvernay, Luke, Dez. I'm fine with that. Juju, Boykin, or Johnson, Vance McDonald. Juju and Boykin, or Deontay Johnson and Vance McDonald. That one's pretty close because Boykin, probably a third of the game. I probably expect a third of the game from Vance McDonald too. I think I like the upside a little bit more with Deontay over Juju, so give me Johnson and Vance McDonald there. Thoughts on Juju captain, Dez Bryant, Gus Edwards, Deontay, Big Ben, Luke Wilson? I think it's perfectly fine. No chance the optimal lineup today has less than 2/3 of the Pittsburgh wide receivers, in my opinion. All 3 are going to be very, very popular. What percentage of snaps do you think Duvernay will play? Well, let's go back to see what last game, right? So, Snead's obviously not there. He played 3/4 of the game. I expect Hollywood Brown to probably get more than that. I would probably expect him to get 80 to 90%. I expect Dez somewhere in like the 70% range. So with Boykin versus Duvernay, I would say Boykin maybe 30-ish%, Duvernay 45-ish%, somewhere around there. I expect Duvernay probably to outsnap Boykin slightly, or it's going to be like almost identical. It'll be like 30, both will play like 35 to 40%. Somewhere in that range. Somewhere between like the 30 to 40% range for Boykin and Duvernay is my best guess. Brown is my captain. Yeah, I mean that's one way to get unique. Not a lot of people are going to play Hollywood Brown, but he still has that upside. So I like that for GPPs. Captain Claypool, flex Ebron, Big Ben, Edwards, Snell, and McLeod. Are we talking for cash games or GPPs? For cash games, I think it's all right. Again, I think Gus Edwards is a fine play. I just think he will be a little bit over-owned. I'm not off Gus Edwards. I'm not, because he will be the early down back. I just think, again, I think the ownership will be a little higher than it should be. So, are you going to watch the game? I'm going to try to. I'm probably not going to watch the whole thing, but yeah, I'll try to watch some games. Or I'll try to watch some of it. How many snaps do you think Ray McLeod plays? Well, let's go to Pittsburgh. Let's see. Ray McLeod played 27%, so about a quarter of the game last game. What did he play in Week 10? Let's take a look. He played 21% of the snaps, so I expect probably a quarter of the game for Ray McLeod is a fair guess. Duvernay plus Ebron or Dez plus Boswell? I like the upside a bit more, Duvernay and Ebron. Nobody talking about Benny Snell. No, Benny Snell is a perfectly fine option. I kind of laid out my concerns, though. It just, they don't run the ball, even if they're playing from ahead. So I don't expect a ton of touches for him. I like the upside more with the receivers, but he will also be lower owned than those guys. And Pittsburgh probably are playing from ahead. So I'm fine with Benny Snell. He actually, in the game that James Conner went down at the beginning of the year, like he looked pretty good. When he's come in so far as backup duty, not so much. So Benny Snell is someone that is fine if you feel good about it, but not someone I'm really prioritizing. I have to decide between Claypool at captain with Juju or Juju at captain with Deontay. Yeah, that one's a tough call. I think you just go with your gut. I don't have a super strong take with those Pittsburgh wide receivers. Big Ben, captain, Dez, Justice Hill, RG3, Ebron, and Deontay for cash. Yeah, that's pretty similar. Or, let's see. You have Big Ben, captain, Dez, Justice Hill, RG3, Ebron, Deontay Johnson. That's actually my cash game lineup. So that's what I'm going with in cash. You playing college football, college basketball? I'm not right now just because there's too much research needed for that, and I just don't have the time right now. And Yeah, that's basically why. Duvernay or Justice Hill in single entry GPPs. I'll go Justice Hill, but it's close. Ebron or Gus? I would actually rather play Ebron. I just think Gus Edwards will be a little bit over-owned. I'm not saying Gus Edwards is out of play. And if you feel good about Gus Edwards, if you think the Ravens surprise us and maybe it's a close game or they're even playing from ahead, then Gus looks even better. I'm just a little bit worried at the fact of no real pass-catching ability in a game they're probably playing from behind. Are they really going to run the ball a ton? I don't know. So I will give the edge there to Ebron. Duvernay and Juju or Wilson and Claypool. That's super close for me again. Duvernay, Wilson, pretty close plays. Duvernay will be more popular. Juju and Claypool. Claypool has shown a little bit more upside. So that one's a coin flip for me. I don't have a strong take there. Go with your gut, I would say. Would you? I would much rather have Ebron for the pass catcher if you were going for it. Go for the third pass catcher. Yeah, go for the Steelers stack, right? Good luck, everyone. Locky time. Thanks, man. Good luck today. Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for coming to check out the midday stream. I think we got, over 150 viewers. Not bad. Concurrent viewers. College football and college basketball have been going great for me, at least in the cash games. Hey, that's good. Again, it's just, for me, I don't have the time to really play it at the moment. Hit the like button, folks. Show the love. Yeah, we're at 35 likes, guys. Can we get to 50? If you enjoy it, I would really appreciate it. Leave a like on your way out. We'll go over some ownership before I get out of here as well. So if you want to stick around, take a look at some ownership in the Million Maker. I'll go over ownership in the cash games as well. So, or in the cash games that I played. Let's take a look at ownership for the big tournament first. I'm curious to see what we got here. So, in the big $22 or $11, I should say, tournament. Let's see. So this is my GBP lineup. I want RG3, Big Ben, Deontay, Juju, Justice Hill, and Luke Wilson. RG3, 34%. Big Ben, 77%. Deontay, 49%. Juju, 37%. Hill at 16%. Luke Wilson at 4%. That was my GBP lineup. My cashing lineup, I also threw it in there as well. Again, Big Ben, Deontay. Ebron's only 28%. Dez is only 22%. So I kind of like the ownership there. I'm curious to see what the Steelers' defense is. And 42% owned. Steelers defense. Huge edge. Huge edge in these showdown slates. Again, I'm not saying they can't get there, but that's just over-owned. That's just over-owned for their price. 42% owned Steelers defense is too much. Ravens defense, 7%. I would have just rather played the Ravens defense there. Hollywood Brown, 23% owned. Actually, to just get a catch. Is there no Thursday football? No, there's no Thursday football. Let's see. Dez went over his ownership, 22%. I'm curious to see what Gus Edwards is. Again, Juju, 37% owned. I didn't play Steelers defense either. Yeah, it just they went over-owned again, kind of what I expected. Benny Snell, 45% owned. That is actually a little bit higher than I thought. Gus Edwards, 43%. So I'm not overly surprised there. I felt like he would be a pretty popular play. 42, it's just, in my opinion, it's just too much. Let's go over some cash games, or cash game ownership. I'm curious to see what the Steelers defense is in cash games. Let's see, Steelers defense is only 14%. Okay, so cash games, Big Ben, 99 or 96% owned. Deontay, 70%. RG3, 60%. Ebron at 14%, Dez at 14%, Justice Hill at 20%. And hey, Justice Hill already has a catch. Even though it's for -1 yards, I'll take it. So, yeah, that's basically what I got, guys. Again, I appreciate you coming to check out the live stream. Really do. No Thursday game, unfortunately, but I'll have an early look or final look video for week 13's main slate on Friday. Be on the lookout for that. McFarland, Wilson only 4.5%. I liked it. We'll see how it goes. 45% Steelers. Yeah, that's just too much in my opinion. Curious to see how this game goes, but yeah, I'm gonna try to catch some of this game. So I'm gonna head out here, guys. Thanks again. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope you enjoy the game, and I will see you guys all later.